o'clock right now, everybody, and welcome to tonight's session on organizing for environmental action. This is the beginning of the middle, I believe, of the sessions that's being held for the Festival of Training. And tonight we have as our host, as a presenter of Irv Schmidt. He is from the Rotary Club of Woodinville. My name is Bill McElroy, and I'm going to be your host behind the scenes, more or less. And before we start, there's a few things that I'd like to point out. This is a little bit a different meeting that we normally have in Zoom. This is called a Zoom webinar. And if you look at the bottom, you take your mouse towards the bottom, you have a few things that you can do. One of them is that you can chat. Another thing you can do is you can do a Q&A. So the best way to communicate with us is with the Q&A, because that's question and answers. And I'll be taking a look at those Q&As towards the end. We can take our time, we can answer them. We can also open up the mics if you actually raise your hand, which you have the option to do. This is also being recorded, and it's going to be placed on the district YouTube account. And right now we're about a day and a half behind schedule of posting those. That will be shortly updated here in the next day or so. The other thing that's happening is that we are recording all your emails and your registration documents. So Irv will be able to send some information to you probably in the next few days to see if you're interested in obtaining more information. That being said, I'd like to go ahead and start with the next slide. I'll share the screen at this time. And what we have is the vision of Rotary International. As together we see a world where people unite and take action, create a lasting change across the globe in our communities and in ourselves. And what better way to do this than talk about the environment, which is so dear to our hearts right now. With that, what I'd like to do is introduce you, the man of the hour, Irv. Irv, take it away, sir.
Well, I guess I'm the man of the hour because Bill McElroy was my tech man of the week. I really appreciate Bill's help on this. And so, yeah, and thank you everybody for being here today. It's these are kind of historic times, and I think we all know what we're facing now, that the environment is, well, anyway, let me back up. Organizing for environmental action. Let's work to achieve a sustainable environment and habitable planet for us and for future generations. So as I was getting ready for this talk tonight, I just paused again. I've done it a lot, and realized what a moment in history we have. We all know what we're facing. Before this pandemic, we have all the terrible fires in California and Australia, everywhere. We have the floods, we have these big storms. So I think we have a chance now, what's called, in my view, a liminal space. A liminal space is a kind of a term meaning a threshold moment. We don't know exactly where we're going, but we've definitely left a space. And so now, if we're doing it right, we can discern how best to move ahead into the future and make it count. And so with that in mind, I wanted to thank Kathy Gibson, our incoming district governor. She had the foresight to realize that the environment and the climate issues are of such magnitude that she wanted to establish an environmental sustainability committee in our district. And so yeah, she asked me to head it up, and I'm very glad I said yes, because it's a chance for all of us to gather to get into this topic that we're talking about, environmental action for the good of our planet and for all of us, our kids and future generations. Next slide. So basically I want to do a three-part, basically 15, 15, 30. So I'll take about 15 minutes to talk about the climate and some of the background and my own personal commitment the day that I made my decision to do something. We'll take about 15 minutes for a panel discussion. You can see the other panelists there on the right. We'll talk about a current Rotary Club environmental action project in our district right here, and see how doable it is for all of us to get involved. In the last 30 minutes, we'll have some polling questions before we have question and answers, but we'll have plenty of time to discuss together. Hopefully we can have a good discussion, question and answers about what we can do together and how we can move ahead together. Togetherness is always more important and more powerful than one individual. So next slide. So I think we all have a story to tell. And there was a moment that I knew I had to do something for the environment. It was a turning point in my life. And so I thought I would share that with you all. Well, I knew that about 5 years ago, I said, I got to do something for the planet. I grew up as a farm kid in California. All my kinfolk were farmers. I had the good fortune of working in the summer times with my brothers and my dad to harvest prunes and apricots in California. And I realized how I loved what the earth had done for me and how it had shaped me. So I ended up years later saying, I got to take an environmental action course. I got to get involved. And so during the course of that seminar, I was read a poem by a gentleman named Drew Dellinger. Again, I was there to listen to it. I did listen to it. And I'd like to share that. I'd like to read that poem to all of you that are listening in. So next slide. So this is a part of his work, actually. It's not the whole poem, but it's called Hieroglyphic Stairway, a reflection by Drew Dellinger. It's 3:23 in the morning, and I'm awake because my great-great-grandchildren won't let me sleep. My great-great-grandchildren ask me in dreams, what did you do while the planet was plundered? What did you do when the earth was unraveling? Surely you did something when the seasons started failing, as the mammals, reptiles, birds were all dying. What did you do once you knew? That really shook me up, to be honest with you. And it didn't take me very long to contact my grandchildren and announce to them that I was doing some things for them and for the earth. So the next slide, please. So having gotten in motion, I had to face the fact that for many years I thought I was just a powerless individual. The issues were so great. What could I do as an individual person? These worldwide massive problems. Well, I came to realize, was I a powerless individual, or was I part of a giant worldwide movement involving millions of caring people where our role is just to do our part? So in other words, that was a shift for me. About 5 or 6 years ago, I said, all I have to do is my part. I understood that throughout every continent on the earth, there are millions of people that are saying, and have been saying for many years, we have to do better by our earth. So that was a huge revelation for me, actually. And I wanted you all to think about it. So I wanted to include that in my initial remarks about this subject, because let us now depart with any notion that we're powerless. We are part of a great movement. Any of us that care about doing something for the earth and for our climate, we're just part of the big picture. Let's just do our part. And as Rotarians, we've done plenty of that. So let's concentrate on some climate issues. So next slide. So here's an interesting magazine cover, if you remember this. This was last year, the Rotarian magazine, April 2019. And the president at that time was Barry Rassin. I looked at that and I read it cover to cover. I gotta say, I haven't read every Rotarian magazine cover to cover, but I did this one. And I have it right here. And I don't know if any of you have yours or not, but if you do, you do. If you don't, you don't. Maybe you can get a copy, but it's an example of, it's just full of what was going on in April 2019 and what had been going on in the Rotary world. So it's not like what we're doing tonight is something new. What we're doing tonight is just resolving to do something in our district, which had been other Rotarians had been doing for quite a while before us, but we can join the Rotary Army, so to speak. And there was an article about a group called the Citizens Climate Lobby, which is a nonpartisan, very effective, it's now worldwide. And it's a group of people, citizens, that take like I said, a nonpartisan view of trying to make changes that will benefit all of us. And so that's an article in here. And another one that I liked, among many others, was something that we're going to talk about when we get into our project that the Woodinville Rotary Club is doing. And it's about regenerative agriculture. And so what I'm saying to you is, as we talk more about this subject, take it from me that the Rotary, the leadership at the highest levels have understood that it's time for us now to get more officially declaring ourselves to be environmentally battlers. So can we have the next slide? So I took part in something that was pretty remarkable in my life, and that was, so the slide says the challenge to Rotarians worldwide laid down by keynote speaker Bill Gates Sr. at the Rotary International Convention in 2009 in Utah. So I was at that, I had the good fortune of being at that conference. And so Bill Gates Sr. took the stage he was the very first speaker, and he basically said the following in so many words. I'm stunned at what there were about 50,000 people in this big convention room. I'm stunned in reviewing what you Rotarians did about 35 years ago when you decided without any governmental assistance, you individuals, you worldwide individual group of people that care to make a difference, you said, let's take care of polio. And over the next 35 years or so, countless individuals did their parts, going to Kenya, throughout the world, dropping those little, making those little droplets on kids' mouths, because there was such an urgent need that was felt to rid the world of this terrible disease that was really laying so many people low. It's hard to remember those days, but they were not good days. So anyway, Bill Gates said, look, Bill Gates Sr., Rotary International, all of you out there, you 50,000 people, you've got to think big. Your whole organization has to think big because you're one of the very few organizations in the world that have the punch built up over those years of trust at various levels throughout the world. You have the punch to make something significant happen. So you have to think big. And so in my brain, I was thinking, I never forgot that talk. And I said, okay, polio, now what about the climate crisis? We all know it's happening. Why can't we now say, okay, let's think big and let's take on and let's do our part to make this planet habitable. So next slide. I'll just read this one. So Mother Earth needs us to act boldly. So action, bold now action. The time has come. There are several definitions of environmental sustainability. And the one that I have chosen, it's a lot more than just recycling Diet Pepsi cans, which is important, but here's what I would like us to focus on. Sustainability is about stabilizing the currently disruptive relationship between Earth's two most complex systems, human culture and the living world. So we all know that the human beings on our planet have done the most to shape and reshape the living world. So the idea here is to let's address that disruptive relationship. There are plenty of ways to do it. This is the time, this liminal space between what life was like before this pandemic and now this time of reflection. Let's move on to reconciling much better us with our home. So next slide.
Well, as soon as I get to.
So I wanted to, wherever Bill Gates Sr. is located now, I wanted to send him a memo that District 5030 accepts the challenge and we will think big and lead the charge for environmental stability and sustainability. So thank you for letting me give those remarks. They mean a lot to me and I think they mean a lot to all of you or you wouldn't be here tonight. So as we move forward, let's remember we're not in this alone. We're just doing our part and we can find allies all over the place. So next slide. So now we're going to take about 15 minutes or so, more or less, to have our panelists over here on the right. I'll introduce them in a second. But this is a living, breathing sample of a project currently underway with the Woodinville Rotary Club in our district. And so this project involves Rotarians and non-Rotarian community partners, which is something that Kathy really desires us to do this year and for the future in our district. Let's find projects that involve us Rotarians and the non-Rotarian partners in the community to do something for the climate crisis. Let me introduce the panelists right now. Susan Webster is a member of the Woodinville Rotary Club, and very passionate about the project that we're doing. And she'll talk a little bit about her thoughts on it. Lisa McWhorter is the executive director of, there she is waving. She's the executive director of something called 21 Acres, which it's basically its mission is to inspire action to solve climate challenges by learning as a community to grow, eat, and live sustainably. So Lisa she'll tell you about how her group got involved with this and what it meant to her organization. And then Tom Quigley, our last panelist, is president of the Sammamish Valley Alliance. He's very passionate about agriculture. We have a lot of agriculture in the Sammamish Valley and a lot of young farmers. Tom is instrumental in helping those young farmers, giving them encouragement and guidance and mentoring. He's also the president, I guess is the word, of the Sammamish Valley Grange. So it's a great honor. I'm so glad that these three wonderful people have given us some time tonight to discuss our environmental action project. And so how it started was, we do have this beautiful valley, the Sammamish Valley. The soil is very, very rich there. And we have lots of agricultural activity. And we have a lot of young farmers out there. Besides 21 Acres, there's all sorts of farmers that are practicing this beautiful regenerative agriculture. So I have to watch, I can't say a certain word, otherwise I'll get not cut off here. So if there's a way to minimally till the soil, what that means is you allow the soil to retain carbon. And a retention of carbon can actually reduce the global warming effects. So how you treat the soil is essential to a healthy soil and for our own climate, because the soil will retain carbon. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to Susan Webster, who will now talk a little bit more about, our tractor. That's right, tractor. Tractor, the magic word.
Thank you, Irv, and thank you, Bill, for inviting me to sit in on your important conference tonight. I'm really excited to see these conversations about climate happening in my own community here of Woodinville, especially when it combines with foods and farming. I love seeing people come together to engage in climate solutions, this one at the soil level. This is happening right now in Woodinville and throughout our valley. People really, truly want to act and do what they can to impact climate change by supporting initiatives that really make a difference. It's really all about a lot of us coming together and working towards a common goal. Younger generations like our Rotaractors and students at UW Bothell really want to participate. And that's really something. And I have to say, if it wasn't for the current conditions we're all living in, I know we'd be out there on the farm every day doing what we can to nurture the soil. So yes, I'm a Woodinville Rotarian and my classification is retail. And I've known Irv for about 15 years now and have been listening every time he talks about Mother Earth, or Mother Soil as I like to think of it, this climate solution right under our feet, or the restorative power of nature, if you will. So when we as Rotarians with our friends became more acquainted and really began listening to local farmers in our beloved Sammamish Valley, which you see here and you'll see throughout these slides, and being inspired by people like Greta, we learned about ways farmers could be less impactful and more restorative to the soil. And that's what you're going to see in this beautiful piece of equipment here, to actually capture carbon in the soil, not just carbon neutral, but carbon negative, or reducing the farming global footprint. In the end, fertile soil stores more carbon. And yes, Irv, you said it, we're fortunate that we live here in the Sammamish Valley, and we certainly don't take it for granted. We want to preserve it, and that is a natural thing for us. But through our relationships, through Rotary and other relationships with organizations like 21 Acres, the Sammamish Valley Grange, the Sammamish Valley Alliance, all of which support local sustainable farms and organic farming, we began to see opportunities. So partnering with 21 Acres to expand this desire to affect climate change through regenerative farming practices created this incredible energy from all of us to take action to affect a real and lasting change. being able to see this in one's community, having made possible by Irv and his support and from our local Woodinville Rotary Club, through the purchase of this wonderful and mighty farming implement known as Super Mario right here, we are just now in the spring planting cycle, seeing the soil be improved for what we know will be a favorable outcome during not just this harvest, but future generations and harvests to come. So thank you again for letting me speak about this passion and this drive that moves me forward and wanting to participate in these climate initiatives, and especially the opportunities to work with our local Rotarians and other community members that you see on the panel here tonight, and our greater community at large that I know will want to participate as we begin this important project. So thank you.
Next slide.
Okay.
Next slide. There it is. What's that, Susan?
There we are. There's our team. This is really how it started. There's the mighty BCS right there, and a lot of people from 21 Acres. There's Irv, Tom, myself. Lisa was probably taking the picture there. Oh, there she is in the back. There you are. But there's the 21 Acres farm, and this is where it all started. This is where we put our feet on the ground, get our hands in the soil, and we work it here, and we have a wonderful outcome, which you will learn more from 21 Acres and Tom. Next slide.
Which
Okay.
means it's my turn. All right. Well, as Irv said, my name is Lisa McWhorter. I've worked at 21 Acres for over 8 years now. I began in the farm market and got to know this community really, really intimately by helping people buy their groceries. And most recently, I've become the co-director of the organization, and I oversee the farm market, and all of our education programs that happen there. I have known some of these amazing Rotary members for many years. I've been blessed to serve on a couple of panels that you guys have invited me to speak on. I have been rescued by some of these Rotary members, including Tom, who brought his Bobcat over 2 years ago when the huge snowstorm came through and we were inundated. And I feel really honored with the winding path my life took to have ended up at a place like 21 Acres and in a valley, in a community like the Sammamish Valley. My organization is specifically a community geared learning center. Everything we do is attempting to understand how we as a community can recognize, learn from, and improve the soil from which we all feed. It's been really inspiring to see this resurgence of energy as Irv stepped forward and donated this incredible piece of equipment. What you see here is the edge of the BCS with what's called a flail mower. Actually, go back one if you wouldn't mind.
Sure.
And it is mowing down some rye and vetch cover crop that we planted last fall. It's a little hard to tell, but there were times as the farmer worked through this field that he, at over 6 feet tall, disappeared in this grass. It's really, really tall. And to put it in perspective, this is something that last year we scythed down by hand. Everybody knows what a scythe is. It takes a lot of oblique muscles and many, many hours, whereas with the BCS, we were able to mow and mulch this down in about 15 minutes. And to show you the power of this, now we can go to the next slide. Thanks, Bill. In 15 minutes, an entire field of over 6 foot tall, hardy ryegrass was broken down into chunks that are about 3 or 4 inches long. This was done last week. It sat for 4 days in the sun and rain and broke down. And today, actually, we were out there in our short sleeves using a different implement to prepare it to plant our winter squash. Pieces of equipment like this make an enormous difference for small farmers. I think a lot of us, when we're perhaps more removed from our farmers, which I was before I worked here, have a real pastoral, bucolic image of a charming day spent outside. And we forget the real backbreaking work that goes into farming, especially when that farmer is committed to practices that step away from agribusiness and monoculture and pesticides and herbicides as a means of manipulating the soil for their own short-term benefit. So what I am really humbled to see with our own farmers is them really committed to looking at the soil as a complex and beautiful system and caring more about the soil than they do the plants that grow in it, because they're recognizing the relationship between what healthy soil is and how that results in a nutrition-packed harvest for ourselves. On the next slide, this is actually me out there next to our farmer, Anthony. And this is mid-March. We've already harvested from these fields radishes and spicy salad greens and maybe spinach. This is another implement called the Power Harrow. A harrow is a really incredible piece of attachment that goes on to Super Mario, as Irv has named it. And what that does, it's a real big distinction between what a rototiller does, which a rototiller tends to turn up and turn upside down soil, which the short version, which my farmer would never give you, leads to a real big disruption of the natural biome and living matter that lives in the soil. So instead, this harrow just does a really light disturbance that deals with the residue, which is a fancy term for that mowed down cover crop. And it also turns in and deals with what the farmers are always paying attention to, the pH of our soil. So that white powder you see on the field is actually lime that we closely calculated and spread on the field. And then in one fell swoop, we incorporate that into our topsoil, as well as breaking down the residue, incorporating that into our soil, and adding more mass, which will decompose and lead to even more healthy systems in our soil. This is a little bit technical, but I wanted to share some of the technical sides because it has a really incredible impact on the day-to-day work of our farmers. Not to say that we weren't out there sweating a lot today as we worked in the fields, but it makes the commitment to the soil attainable to a small scale farmer in a way that they wouldn't be able to commit to unless they had an investment of a larger tractor. So thank you, Irv and Rotary. This has just been incredible. And we're really excited that even while some of our original plans for this partnership have had to be put on the back burner because of the realities of our situation right now and of our community's commitment to keeping people safe, it hasn't at all stopped the brainstorm train and the support that we've seen from Rotary for our farmers from a forced distance, which has just been incredible. I know for a fact that a lot of our local farmers have sold out of all of their CSA subscriptions, and I have no doubt that that was not a coincidence that we talked about it in a Rotary meeting and suddenly the farmers are sold out. So thank you for letting me be a part of this, and I look forward to answering any questions.
So next slide. So there's a really great example of Rotary finding a local community group to partner with, and the benefit was far greater than just the piece of equipment, the relationships that have been built, and the encouragement that farmers feel by having the weight of Rotary supporting them is huge. And so if you're a community that's sort of struggling or looking at, well, we don't have a Sammamish Valley, for us to, support the farmers, what can we do? Most likely there is some community group that is doing something to do with local agriculture, local food, restorative, regenerative farming. Seek those groups out and just offer your support, because it's so huge to these farmers to have another generation, another group that has not maybe traditionally been backing farmers now to come in and to, supporting that effort. I made a couple other notes, and one of them is finding ways to get our hands into the soil, just how great that is. And then Liesl, you made the point of I don't think you used the exact term, but innovative thinking of what a challenge that is to always be challenging each other to, are we being innovative in our thinking, and what does that really mean, and what can we do to bring a new level of innovation to these kinds of projects. So I'm excited too about this idea of Rotary reaching out to groups in the community that probably in the past have not necessarily felt super supported, and what a change that has made in their lives and in their livelihood. Thank you.
They've asked me to go ahead and issue a couple polls and Q&A right now. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the polls, as they say, and I want to feel free how you answer the polls. First question: do you believe that the time has come for urgent action to address our environment. And you can go ahead and you can answer that if you would, please. And the second question, would you rank your concern for the environment in the top 5 of your concerns? And number 3, you can scroll down. Are you interested in champion a climate-related project for your Rotary Club? And the fourth question is, if yes, would you like guidance on how to proceed? And we'll keep these poll open for a few minutes here, and then we'll go to Q&A.
I'd like to, oh, here's a hand that's raised. Number 1, before we do that, I could just, if I could, Bill?
Yep.
If you noticed the one picture of the community there with, there were a lot of younger people there. And I think younger people are they're looking at a lot of us. And if you notice the smiles, I just wanted to put a plug in for anything involving the climate, where you're showing the younger generations that we care about them, especially for the future of the Rotary Club. I think of Rotaries around the world. If we can show the commitment, the honest and sincere commitment to making this planet habitable, that's going to go a long way toward our viability in the future. And if possible, Bill, may I ask Mia Harris, if you could unmute her. She's the current president of our Rotaract Club. And I know that Mia has expressed her reactions to our commitment to buy this tractor and to show concern for the earth. So Mia, do you have anything to say? If you can unmute her now for a second.
Yeah, hi Irv, thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. One thing I know, when I've talked with all the other Rotaract presidents, we had our own Zoom meeting to discuss what's going to happen next year. We all wanted to find a way to help on the district level. So we are more aligned with the Rotary clubs and what Rotary is doing in our district now that we're out of youth services. And I think the biggest question I have on behalf of all the Rotaractors is, how can we get involved at the district level? Because we can create mini projects on our campuses, which we already do, and with local community members, but how can we get involved at the district level?
How do you feel about this climate project?
We love it. We were super jazzed when we heard about it, because it really goes along with the young professional concept we're pushing, especially since all of us are exiting college and going into the workforce, and we want to align how we work with what our passions are in most respects. So finding a job where like environmental issues is important, people care about the community and helping one another is a big deal for us. And so knowing that our district is creating something that we can get involved with is a big deal for us, and we love it.
Well, there's 2 things that maybe I should answer this just a little bit, being from the district, Irv. Couple things, Mia. First of all, is that you're the host club. You're with the Woodinville Host Club. You go to them first, and you ask them, and they'll start promoting it, and they'll start promoting it through the district. The other things you can do is also work with the other Rotaract clubs, and just some information. There is a movement that's what's going to be starting here next year with Kathy Gibson. Starting in July 1st, that we're going to have an emphasis on actually having a club that's going to be focused on the environment. So we've got some exciting changes happening, and to work with not only the Rotaract leadership from the district, but also from the club district is probably my biggest recommendation at this time. And also this is being noted, there's some district people here making notes of exactly what you're are asking us to do, and so that's being shared as you speak. I hope that answered your question okay, Mia.
Thank you so much, Bill.
No problem at all. There's a raised hand from Maggie Peterson. Maggie, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk and answer your question. Feel free, Maggie.
Hi, yes, I am president-elect for the starting in June, July 1st, I guess, I will be president-elect. So in my year, my focus will absolutely be the environment. And I would really love to connect. We support Trinity House. I would love to do some sort of smaller growing project, a pea patch, if you will. We don't have the space. We're pretty urban that you have out there in Woodinville, but I'm very, very interested in the environment. That's my platform. And what was my question? How do we get involved at the district level? And I've written down the names of Susan and Liesl, and hopefully I'll have you come out and speak to our club about what we can do environmentally, but that's going to be my focus, is how we can start, because right now we work with Trinity Place for Housing, YMCA Housing. That's our main project, and we service a food bank. So we are involved in these kind of projects. I would love to see us do some sort of growing project as well, and how we can start that and how we can get that going. And so hopefully in the future, I'll be speaking to both of you and have you come out and help me to further that plan for our club in Edmonds. Oh, I guess I should say that we're in the Edmonds Club, but that's definitely going to be environmental and food issues, and environment is absolutely my platform when I become president.
Bravo.
That's wonderful.
One of the things we did is that we kept all your answers are being kept as far as needing help. And so I know that Irv will reach out to you here shortly within the next few days.
Fabulous.
Yep, thank you. So I'm going to go ahead and mute you. Alan, Mary, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. Alan, you've got your raised hand. Go ahead and speak.
Thank you, Bill and Irv and Liesl and Susan. Thank you for just the focus on environment this year or next year or forever, actually. One of the other initiatives that Kathy Gibson wants to put together is we want to create, like Bill said or touched on it, is an environmental sustainability club. It's kind of the same model as what we're using for passport clubs, and it's just what we want to do is get a lot of environmentalists together to share their passions for the environment, and then learn about Rotary and have a passion for it. And Liesl and 21 Acres, I especially have your names down to try to get you to take a look at just joining. Our task force is actually meeting this Thursday via Zoom, and we are just trying to figure out the ways to go ahead and put this all together. So this would be a great time to get on the ground floor and help us out putting this all together. I think that while there are a lot of Rotarians who are environmentalists, and I believe that a lot of environmentalists can and will become Rotarians through things like this. So stay tuned, and if you want any more information, then have Irv contact me. Thank you.
Okay. Got some Q&As here for you. One question comes from Mary Lee Fuller. Is the University of Washington Professor David Montgomery a resource for your project at all? Liesl, I guess that question is for you.
Yeah, I think so. Yes, the answer is very much yes. Professor Montgomery has actually spoken on our campus. He is very much somebody that our current lead farmer follows, as have a few of our former farmers, and is usually at the top of the list of a resource when we're looking to understand how we can best support the broader learning objectives of farmers in our microclimates with our own experiments.
Good. I have a couple of statements here, maybe kind of a semi-question. I'll start with Roberta Brooks. Has anyone on the panel seen the Elk Run farm in Maple Valley? It is a farm that a number of Rotary clubs in South King County have helped to initiate and continue to support. The farm provides fresh produce for 12 food banks in South King County.
Elk Run Farm, incredible. They are just incredible, and it's just shameful that I can't remember their names right now. Our head farmer, Anthony, is close friends with the current head farmers down there. I know them. I've met them before. They're doing amazing, amazing work. I think that's the beauty. Was it, Maggie, you said you're in Edmonds and you're not in an urban or a rural center, you're more in the urban, but you know, even our urban areas in Western Washington, we're pretty blessed that we're not that far away from our own version of rural. So I really want to encourage you guys that, I mean, I myself live in Seattle, and it's a 25-minute drive for me to get to the farm in Woodinville. Sometimes it feels like an entire world away, but it's just 25 minutes. So there are farms up and down the I-5 corridor doing incredible work. And I think that's the really amazing part about you guys as a region wanting to act is there are Elk-Run farms everywhere. And reach out and find your own.
And also the farms would be really happy to have your participation all up and down. And in Edmonds, you're not far from Snohomish County too, which is just loaded with wonderful farms there. I would encourage you to reach out to some of those farmers there as well.
There's a couple of semi-question comment from Howard Cohen. Restoring the Sammamish River to a habitat for salmon life and the removal of invasive plant species like the Himalayan blackberries. Do you have any comments about that from the panel?
Tom, do you want to take that one first? Our very favorite Himalayan blackberry and reed canary.
Well, that's right. And restoring the Sammamish River, of course, if you go back far enough, it meandered throughout the valley. And so to restore it to that grade probably will never happen. There is efforts to remove Himalayan blackberry. It is so pervasive that it's almost lower on the list below other invasive species. But as these farms become more proficient and they sort of push, further to their own boundaries, they're eradicating, just like you do there at 21 acres, where there used to be lots of Himalayan blackberry. There's now very productive farm fields. So the picture looks much better today than it did just even a decade ago.
Mm-hmm. And beyond just the production fields, I think that as more of our small farms begin to understand the importance of a pollinator hedgerow and productive shaded buffer spaces on their ditches that run to the Sammamish River, we're really, really fortunate to have a staff member whose entire job is restoration and landscape management, to be working to bring about 3 to 4 acres of our property back to an established wetland space. But that is all in service of showing that healthy wetland, healthy hedgerow, healthy buffer spaces only work in ecosystem service for the farm in general.
And there's another opportunity for collaboration too. Every county has conservation districts or youth conservation corps or groups that are out working on riverbanks, trying to restore them, improve salmon habitat, and ultimately improving climate. So easy to reach out to those organizations and offer support there as well.
Absolutely.
I have a hand up from Brenda Diamond. I'm going to allow Brenda to go ahead and talk. You are now able to go ahead and answer your question, Brenda. Feel free.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, I'm president-elect of the University District Rotary Club, and we are going to start one of these committees of environmental sustainability. And I think it's Tom. Could you kind of maybe attend our club and speak to us? Especially salmon seems to be a concern, reestablishing the salmon in some of these areas. It sounds like you're knowledgeable.
Well, I don't know if I'm the most knowledgeable about salmon, but certainly something that would be fun to talk about, some innovative ideas. And one of the things that comes to mind is all the school grounds that we all have in our neighborhoods, and working with finding that teacher that really wants to do a science project and a geometry project, and taking just a small portion of a school ground and turning that back into a garden space. It's just a tremendous opportunity, and you don't have to have a farm or a salmon stream to help show these young kids how to connect to soil again. So
good.
Another opportunity.
Thank you.
Okay, we got another question. Thank you much, Brenda. We have a final question here from Mark and Carol. Are there classes planned at 21 acres on sustainability?
Oh, just a few. We are, as a small but mighty team, scrambling to shift our education into the virtual platform right now. Normally this time of year, we would be just beautifully inundated with school field trips coming to experience the farm, as well as dozens, if not hundreds of volunteers each month coming to learn alongside our farmers about just how hard it is to farm, but also the beauty and the importance of prioritizing soil. So we're rising to the challenge. I don't want to say struggling, but we were for a while now. We're rising to the challenge of figuring out the virtual site. And we're also very much looking forward to when our education can predominantly happen back on the farm. Because as several of our panelists talked about, there's nothing like putting your hands in the soil and really being up close and personal, as well as the amazing projects that we have in mind. So come and see our restoration work, come and take a farm tour, come and volunteer, come and be part of one of the Rotary gleaning parties we plan on having. There are lots of classes that will once again take place that are not just hosted by 21 Acres, but a lot of other area farmers will come and use our campus as a place to educate. So we're really fortunate to have this campus.
So I know that I happen to know where 21 Acres is located. It's somewhere in the valley. Can you be a little bit more specific?
Sure, yeah. We are on the absolute north end of the Sammamish Valley APD, Agriculture Production District. Right, Tom? Thank you. If you know where Molbach's is, which is a huge staple in the Woodinville community, a beautiful nursery store. So think about if Molbach's on 175th had a backyard on 171st. That's us. We're in their backyard. We're south of Molbach's on the very north side, and we are technically in unincorporated King County.
Good.
Lisa, I'd just like to chime in and mention that those of you listening out there, if you want to come and visit 21 Acres and shop the farm market like I try to do once a week, and encourage everybody I know to visit the 21 Acres market on Friday and Saturday, you can go there and shop and pick from the most incredible farm fresh, never been on a truck, delivered by the farmer. I mean, just as green can be, the most beautiful local produced produce. Then you deserve a trip to 21 Acres. This summer, this winter, anytime that you can make the time, please come and visit this wonderful facility that we're so blessed with. This is our neighborhood market, but the fact that we live in this incredible production area and we can have these kind of tasty treats all the time from 21 Acres and local farmers. It's a real treat. Thanks.
Yeah, I don't see any more hands or questions. I will answer Brenda a quick solution. There's a salmon center located in McCullum Park, just off the highway in just by Mill Creek. And they have done educational classes about salmon and salmon streams and things like this. I know I've seen their presentation. It's quite good. And I'm sure they'll be more than welcome to go ahead and make a presentation for the University Club. That being said, I don't see anything else. Irv, I'm going to leave. I might have to go the last slide to you here because you like to go ahead and end with something. So give me a second and I'll have you sign off here.
Okay, before I sign off though, on that slide, I want to mention, I'm just going to hold up a book. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Drawdown. It's we wanted to use, I think this year during the year with the Environmental Sustainability Committee, we want to make sure that the soil and on Mother Earth is important, but there are 100 ways that have been scientifically proved not only to combat the change, but to actually reduce the amount of global warming. This is referred to in Barry Rassin's stuff back in 2019. There's also something called the Environmental SRAG, Environmental Sustainability Rotary Action Group. And I'm just putting these things out. I didn't want to say, listen to these 10 things without, just rattle them off. But I'm trying to say to anyone that's listening out there, it's been a phenomenal discussion. And there are so many ways just to help out. Like we said, do our part. You're not powerless. None of us are. I'm going to throw out just a couple of things before I read that last quote. But anybody can do Meatless Mondays. And I think, if you read this book on the Drawdown, there's a place for cattle and so on our planet. Of course, if we can reduce some of the acreage that's being used now to graze cattle, we can greatly impact our climate in a positive way. So if we can just think about something like Meatless Mondays, there's solar roofs that Rotary clubs could get involved in, helping to put a roof on, ways to reduce the food waste. That's a huge issue that causes heating in the environment. besides supporting the local farmers. So I didn't want to do a bunch of pontificating about it, but the need is pretty severe. And that's a harsh word, sorry. The need is now, let's put it that way. It's not severe, but it needs our attention. So here's what the great Thomas Berry said. He was an ecologist and a great, highly respected gentleman. And he just said that the great work now, as we move into a new millennium, is to carry out the transition from a period of human devastation of the earth to a period when humans would be present to the planet in a mutually beneficial manner. And we know we can accomplish that. And I'm just going to put a plug in again for Bill Gates Sr.'s challenge to us, and that is to think big. And Kathy Gibson, thank you for leading the charge. There's a time for everything, and I think the time for your being a district governor is the time for this environmental shift, and I'm really proud to be a part of it. And I'm so grateful for the panelists and for Bill McElroy's help, and Kathy and the other people that are on this call that are working the district that have the big hearts for doing the right thing. And so our climate is certainly one of those areas that we should pay attention to. We have the desire to do it. So, Bill, that's kind of it. And thanks so much for spending this hour with us.
Yay.
Thank you so much, everybody. Thank you so much.
All right.
Right.